Imagine a world where kings held all the power, yet one man managed to pull the strings from the shadows. He wasn't a monarch, but he ruled Britain for over 20 years. He is the reason the office of the Prime Minister exists today. But was he a brilliant visionary or just a master of corruption? This is the rise and reign of the Screenmaster General, Robert Walpole. Born in 1676 to a Norfolk squire, Robert Walpole wasn't destined for the throne. He was a third son, originally intended for a career in the church. However, the deaths of his elder brothers changed everything. Suddenly, he was the heir to a significant estate and a seat in Parliament. The stage was set for a man who understood that land and lineage were the keys to power. In 1701, Walpole entered Parliament. He didn't just walk in, he stormed in. A member of the Whig Party, he quickly gained a reputation for being an incredible orator and a wizard with numbers. While others focused on grand ideologies, Walpole focused on the boring stuff: taxes, debt, and trade. He knew that if you control the money, you control the nation. Success breeds enemies. In 1712, his rivals, the Tories, accused him of venality and corruption. It worked. Walpole was expelled from Parliament and locked in the Tower of London. But instead of breaking him, this made him a Whig martyr. His cell became a fashionable meeting spot for the elite. He walked out of prison more popular and more dangerous than ever. 1720 brought the first great financial crash, the South Sea Bubble. Thousands were ruined as stock prices plummeted. The government was on the brink of collapse. While others panicked, Walpole saw an opportunity. He stepped in with a plan to restore public credit. He didn't just save the economy. He saved the royal family from a massive scandal. By 1721, Walpole was appointed First Lord of the Treasury and Chancellor of the Exchequer. There was no official title of Prime Minister yet. In fact, it was used as an insult. Critics called him a Prime Minister to imply he was a greedy favorite of the king. Walpole hated the term, but for all intents and purposes, the modern British government was being born. Did you know why the UK Prime Minister lives at 10 Downing Street? We have King George II and Walpole to thank. In 1732, the king offered the house to Walpole as a personal gift. Walpole, ever the shrewd politician, refused it for himself, but accepted it for his office. This move forever linked the building to the head of the Treasury, a tradition that lasts to this day. Walpole's mantra was quieta non mover, let sleeping dogs lie. He believed that war was a waste of money and a risk to the Hanoverian dynasty. By keeping Britain out of European conflicts for 2 decades, he allowed trade to flourish and the national debt to stabilize. He was a man of peace, not out of idealism, but out of cold, hard pragmatism. How did he stay in power for 21 years? Corruption, or patronage, as he called it. Walpole knew everyone had a price. He handed out jobs, titles, and pensions to ensure his supporters stayed loyal. He turned the House of Commons into a well-oiled machine that answered to him. If you wanted to get ahead in 18th century London, you had to go through Sir Robert. Every giant has a stumble. In 1733, Walpole tried to change how wine and tobacco were taxed to stop smuggling. The excise crisis erupted. People screamed that he was a tyrant. Protests turned into riots. For the first time, Walpole felt the ground shake. He eventually withdrew the bill, proving that even the Screenmaster had to listen to the mob occasionally. Walpole's greatest contribution wasn't a law, but a system. He solidified the cabinet system, where ministers meet to decide policy. By chairing these meetings and acting as the link between the king and Parliament, he created the blueprint for how most modern democracies function today. He transformed the monarchy into a ceremonial role. Despite his efforts, Walpole couldn't keep the peace forever. In 1739, a sea captain named Robert Jenkins claimed Spanish coast guards had cut off his ear. The public went into a frenzy. Walpole was forced into a conflict known as the War of Jenkins's Ear. He famously remarked, "They are ringing their bells now. They will be wringing their hands soon." The war was a disaster. Walpole's grip on power began to slip. His health was failing, and a new generation of politicians, including the fiery William Pitt, were tired of his old-fashioned ways. They accused him of being soft on Spain and too focused on his own wealth. The man who had been untouchable for 2 decades was suddenly vulnerable. By 1742, Walpole's majority in Parliament had vanished. After a contested election result, he realized the end had come. He resigned, becoming the Earl of Orford. It was the end of an era. Even in retirement, however, he remained an advisor to the king. He had built a system so robust that it continued to function exactly as he designed it, even without him. Walpole wasn't just about politics. He was a man of immense taste. He used his vast wealth to build Houghton Hall, one of the most beautiful homes in England. He filled it with one of the greatest art collections in Europe. Sadly, his grandson later sold the collection to Catherine the Great of Russia to pay off debt. Sits now in the Hermitage Museum. What was he like? Walpole was a big man with a booming laugh and a love for hunting. He was known for his Norfolk coarse manners, often drinking heavily and telling bawdy jokes. He didn't pretend to be a saint. He was a realist who understood human nature, especially its weaknesses, better than anyone else in his century. Walpole's power didn't just come from Parliament. It came from the palace. He had a unique relationship with Queen Caroline. He realized that the way to King George II's heart was through his wife. Together, the Queen and Walpole managed the king's temper and guided British policy. When Caroline died in 1737, Walpole lost his most valuable ally. We see Walpole's influence every time a prime minister stands at a podium. He proved that a nation could be led by a civilian based on parliamentary support rather than just royal favor. He moved Britain away from the chaos of the 17th century, civil wars, and into a period of stability and global expansion. He was the architect of the British Empire. Was he a hero? To some, he was the great man who saved the economy. To others, he was a corrupt Robin, his nickname, who stole from the public. Perhaps he was both. He used dirty methods to achieve stable ends. In the world of 18th century politics, you couldn't be a saint and survive for 21 years at the top. Robert Walpole died in 1745, but his shadow still looms over Westminster. From 10 Downing Street to the way laws are passed, his fingerprints are everywhere. Next time you see a prime minister on the news, remember the Norfolk squire who started it all. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the shadows of history.